What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another daily drop brought to you by TarHeelIllustrated.com. The show is sponsored by BetterHelp. We're going to talk about them a little bit later on in the show, as we always do. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. Don't click off and go somewhere else. I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner, joining me as he always does. It's our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And AJ, we're here for a Carolina football-related drop, and we're going to be talking about what Carolina has to do during this upcoming season for Drake Maye to have a legitimate chance of not only being at New York, but winning the Heisman Trophy. A lot of conversations about him. If you see it on Twitter every day with these graphics and on social media of he's, the best quarterback coming into the year. It's always between him and Caleb Williams. So there is a lot of hype around him, and we obviously know how talented he is as well. So AJ, in your opinion, obviously winning is number one. You can't go, 0-12 and have any chance at winning the Heisman Trophy. Heck, you can't even really lose more than 3 games and have a chance, especially a program like North Carolina in a league like the ACC. So posing that question to you, what do you think? I know it's a broad question, but what do you think Carolina has to do on the field for Drake Maye to have any chance again of even being in New York, towards the end of the year?
We could throw a win-loss record out there and say they got to have this record at the minimum, but it also might be a matter of how they come to that record.
Yeah.
And how the season plays out. And the other day I did a solo drop about the rankings starting out number 21 and why I think that's a really good spot for them and for Drake, because it gives them an opportunity to build some steam. And I think that's going to be the important thing here. It's not just, well, we got to run a blanket record. It's kind of how they get to that record. So they're going to have a lot of attention the first game. Prime time, game days there. He's going up against Spencer Rattler. So he has to play really, really, really well that night. Has to do something that's a wow moment, like that pass against Miami last year, for example, or it plays like that. He has to do something like that, post huge numbers. Then they go to the next week. Won't be a ton of attention on the App State game, but there'll be some because of the crazy game from a year ago. Then Minnesota comes in, a club that won 9 games last year, Big Ten team, physical team, a club that has a chance, I think, to win 5 or 6 league games in the Big Ten this year, which South Carolina does in the SEC as well, by the way. And that's a chance for him to have a big game against a Power 5 outside the ACC. Then they go to Pitt. Pitt's good. You could argue Pitt's been the second best program in the ACC the last 5-6 years. So that's a road game, a Saturday. It's going to be a much bigger crowd there than there's been the last, 4 times they've been up there. Have all been cold Thursday nights, rainy Thursday nights. The crowds have been terrible. So it's going to be a good crowd. It's going to be a big game. So you think about they go into the open date. They go into the open date at the end of September, going into October. If this team is 4-0, and he puts up big numbers against all 4 of those teams, 3 of whom I think are respected enough nationally, and even App is to a degree. Then they have an open date, and the nation has had time to sort of chew on what this team is and what Drake Maye is. Then they're positioned really well because 5 out of 6 are at home. I think they should win them all. They got Miami in there, Syracuse in there, UVA in there. They got Duke and Campbell on a road game at Georgia Tech. Before game number 11, they go to Clemson. So think about that. Think about this way this thing lays out. If they could go to Clemson and force game day to be there and force that thing to get on ABC, make that game matter enough that it's ABC primetime in Death Valley, with him in Death Valley against that great defense, that's the moment in time right there. That's the moment in time for this team. That's the moment in time for Drake and his Heisman candidacy. I don't think he can have a terrible game and still win it. They can lose, but he could play well, and he could still win the award. Then they got to back it up the next week against what will be, I think, a good NC State team too. And then who knows if they'll play in the ACC championship or not. I think what they have to do is they have to make the meaningful games meaningful, really meaningful, and win most of them. They've got to win those first 4. I think. Yeah. Because if they don't win those first 4, then they're looking at maybe 9-3. And I just don't think a quarterback of a 9-3 North Carolina team is going to win the award. So I think 10 is doable. And 10, especially if they maybe beat State and lose at Clemson, that kind of a thing, he's got to make that Clemson game be on national TV. The nation has to watch him that night. He's got to step forward again. So that would give him 2 games where so many people in the nation are watching the opener. And then, oh, by the way, a few months later, another one in a much bigger stage against a much better environment and a more important game that would have all kinds of implications, hopefully for North Carolina and Drake. That would be the opportunity.
Yeah, agreed. And real quickly, AJ, we're going to continue this conversation, but I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, BetterHelp. So stay tuned for an ad read right here. We'll get back to the show right after. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Sometimes in life, we're faced with tough choices and the path forward isn't always clear. So whether it's dealing with, decisions around your career, maybe your relationship or anything else, whatever it may be, therapy helps you stay connected to what you really want while you navigate life so you can move forward with confidence and excitement and trusting yourself to make these decisions that align with your values is like anything. The more you practice it, the better and easier it gets. I know for me sometimes, as somebody who uses therapy, that sometimes talking things through with someone is just incredibly helpful, and we can all get in our own heads a little bit too much sometimes, and getting out of that by getting feedback from a licensed and trained professional can bring a ton of clarity to your life. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, guys, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule, which is just so huge in my opinion, because convenience is just so big in today's world. And with BetterHelp, you can do everything online. So let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/THI to get 10% off your first month. Again, that's betterhelp.com/THI to get 10% off your first month. Links in the description below. Back to the show. Big thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring. Again, all the links in the description. Head on over to betterhelp.com/THI. Get 10% off your first month. AJ, again, I completely agree with everything you said. Winning is the most important thing, because again, you can't win the trophy unless your team's good. It just doesn't work like that, especially a North Carolina team that doesn't historically have that national pedigree, and they're looking to get to those heights. But last thing I want to talk about, I want to fixate on that South Carolina game a little bit, because I'm going to take you guys back to was it 2020? Was it 2020 year with the Sam Howell year going? Or was it 2021? Everything gets mixed up now. Yeah. Going into Blacksburg, there was a lot of hype around. And I know, I will say that team ended up being very poor. I expect this team to be better than that one. No doubt about it. We saw a lot of preseason hype around Sam Howell. They go into Blacksburg, they lay an egg, and the conversation around him is over. Never hear from it, never sparks up again. I don't expect that to happen, but I'm posing that because I'm asking you how vitally important that South Carolina game is, because College game day, first game of the year, Drake Maye versus Spencer Rattler in Charlotte, big time national TV. Let's say Drake has a down game. He might have a really good year the rest of the year, but a down game in that one and Carolina loses. Could we potentially see another thing where it's like, well, I guess he wasn't the guy everybody thought? Or do you think the conversation and the hype around Drake Maye is a little bit more serious and a little bit more legitimate than maybe the things that surrounded Sam Howell a few years ago?
He's better than Sam.
I do agree with that. Yes.
Ultimately, so yeah,
the upside
and Sam was horrible that game against Virginia Tech. Everybody on offense. That was a
team was
putrid offensive performance by the Tar Heels, and they never recovered from that.
Mm-hmm.
So Sam was just bad that game, and then a couple weeks later, he was even worse at Georgia Tech. So their fate was sealed. I think Sam was a phenomenal college quarterback. And he was just recently named starter of the Commanders. Excuse me.
I'm a
DC native.
We'll excuse that.
I'm a DC native. I have a hard time with that, with all that.
Excuse you.
Pardon me. No intent. It's just it's going to be a snafu that occurs many times over. So he's named the starter, and I think he's going to play above fifth round draft choice. Period. He's better than that. But Drake is just different.
Mm-hmm.
He's different. I think this is a better team. South Carolina is better than that Virginia Tech club was. No doubt about it. Yeah. Far more dangerous. I think this is a tougher task. But Mac has said very clearly, this is an older club. This club has a lot better leadership. I think they know who they are a lot more. I think that they'll deal with adversity fairly well because they're older. And they have a lot of been there, done that guys, more so than that club had. That club, remember, lost Javante, Michael, Diami, and Daz. So they didn't really know who they were in the skill areas when they went up there outside of Sam. So this club's better situated to deal with stuff like that. I think they can lose the opener, and he can have an okay game and still contend for the Heisman. He can't have a game like Sam had in Blacksburg. But I still think, because he's going to have so many amazing other games, that he could still overcome that and get to New York. Once they left Blacksburg, Sam was done as far as the Heisman and going to New York and all that stuff goes. I don't think that would be the case for Drake. But a win and throwing for 350 and 4 touchdowns and no picks, and a win or even 3 touchdowns and no picks, that'll go a long way for Drake. I think that will put him where he needs to be to start humming forward. No doubt about it.
Yeah, it's fascinating, man. It's gonna be cool. It's gonna be interesting to see how this year plays out, because again, I do think the upside of Drake is better than Sam. It's no disrespect to Sam. I think he's a better overall player. I think the NFL, I think he's more prototypical NFL quarterback, which hence why there's so much hype around him. And a lot of people saying he's either the first or second quarterback to go in the draft, pretty consensus. So if he has a good year, if he has a big year, could be fascinating to see what happens. And if Carolina, more importantly, has a big year and wins a lot of games, be fascinating to see what kind of conversations we're having towards the end of the year with in regards to Drake winning the Heisman. So looking forward to that. I know Carolina fans are obviously hoping he's in New York, because if he's in New York, AJ, that means Carolina had a pretty damn good year too. So it's a win-win situation for everybody.
And I'll go up there and cover it.
Yeah, absolutely.
As long as there's no conflict with basketball, because I've never covered a Heisman thing before.
Yeah, so I'm about to say. Cool. That would be sweet, man. Didn't even think about that.
Not thrilled about the Big Apple.
Yeah, I mean, I've
been there enough. It still goes a long way.
Probably not the easiest place to get in and out of too. But
that would be super cool covering something like that.
Yeah,
so
especially
if it happens, and fantastic for me. But nobody gives a crap about that.
No.
Just me. I'm the only one.
I'm sure Drake's thinking right now, man, I hope I play good this year so AJ can make that trip to the Heisman.
Exactly. Yeah.
Again, we'll go ahead and wrap this one up. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Another daily drop. We appreciate y'all watching. We want to get y'all get involved as always too. Links are all in the description below. Facebook, Twitter, our message boards. We want to hear from you. What do you expect from Carolina this year? What do you think Carolina has to do for Drake to have a legitimate chance of winning the Heisman? Because I do think it's an interesting conversation. And I think there'll be some differing opinions from Carolina fans about what it's going to take for him to get there. So again, we want to hear from you guys. Links are all in the description below. The show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Again, get 10% off at betterhelp.com/THI. Again, that's 10% off your first month. Big thank you to them for sponsoring this show. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell as well. See you on the next one. Thanks.